Maya Emori, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Jet Nation, how are you doing? Ate the pin. Welcome to A Just and Equitable Transition, the podcast Talanoa series with your host, JJ the Traveling Diplomat, coming to you live from the island of Rotuma here in Oceania. I hope you're doing fine. Are you fine? Oh yes, I am too. Thank you for asking. Today, ladies and gentlemen, this episode is a special one because not only are we coming to you live from the island of Rotuma, we're also going to have this Talanoa in different sections and different parts of the island. And joining me today, our special guest for this Rotuman episode, my brother, my close friend, Dr. Christiaan De Beukelaer.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, how are you doing, brother?
I'm good.
Welcome to the island of Rotuma.
Thank you.
All right. And ladies and gentlemen, fellow jetters, we always start our session with almost like a talk story. Since we're in the island of Rotuma, there's a thing we always say called Hanuchu. And Hanuchu is to tell a story in Rotuma. And you learn many things about stories, about values, about events. And so today, we're going to have a Hanuchu session with brother Christiaan here. And so, Christiaan, as I say. So guys, when I say Hanuch, you say Ma. That's how our ancestors did it. Our grandparents would say Hanuch, and the audience and the kids will all say Ma. And so guys, Hanuch,
Ma.
Hanuch Okia Rong on Christiaan De Beukelaer. Okay, brother. Tell us the story of who is Christiaan De Beukelaer? What was his upbringing like? And what got you into maritime and the ocean space?
Gosh, where do I start? Let's maybe start with a story about my grandfather that may or may not be true. So he liked to think of himself as a sailor, and he worked in his father's company that imported timber from, lots of different parts of the world, and sold that on in the port of Antwerp. But he really liked the idea of going to sea as a sailor, and he had a little off the beach sailing boat. And one day, of course, as happens to every sailboat, his sail rips, and he's trying to get it fixed. And he mentions that to a colleague at work, and she says, "Oh, sure, that's fine. Just show up this weekend, and I'll mend the sail for you." He shows up, but she doesn't. And despite that, those two lovely people ended up getting married and starting a family, which of course led to my father and myself down the line. My grandmother made him choose between her and the ocean, and he chose her, for which I'm very grateful, because otherwise I wouldn't be here. But then again, I'm also very grateful that the ocean is still here despite all that. So that's kind of where a part of that passion for the ocean comes from. And as a kid, we spent a fair bit of time at the seaside, for holidays. But that was mostly along the Belgian coast, which is a 70-kilometer stretch of coast that's mostly built up by apartment buildings. So it's nothing like what we see here in Rotuma, which is a far cry from anything that you'll find in Belgium. So it's only gradually, after my studies in musicology and working on cultural policy, that I eventually kind of pivoted towards shipping and maritime.
Oh, nice.
In part because from the time I was living in Amsterdam, where I studied at the university that you're now at.
Shout out to the University of Amsterdam, UvA! Chee-hoo!
I met a few people who were working on a very daring initiative at the time, and they were refitting and starting to use a sailing ship as a cargo ship. And of course, that was an absolutely crazy idea. And this was back in 2007, when they were the first to actually actively revive that idea of using sailing ships as a way of transporting cargo. When no one at the IMO wanted to talk about climate change, and there was no real, interest in the industry to work on that either. So with that idea in mind, I kind of, it ripened really in the back of my mind, as some ideas can. And around 10 years later, I thought, maybe I should, start looking into that a bit more. And that's what I did. And I started speaking to some people. I started joining, some of the conversations, and ultimately I joined one of those sailing cargo ships, not the one that was founded by these Tres Hombres, but another one. and I spent a fair bit of time at sea, and things really got rolling after that. And it's just fantastic to be able to build on these very random encounters and ideas and things that other people started to then end up here in Rotuma and playing a small role in helping Pacific Island states at the IMO, but also towards rolling out a fleet of wind-powered cargo ships for these islands under the Pacific Blue Shipping Partnership. So all of that is coming together very nicely.
Shout out to the Pacific Blue Shipping Partnership team, everyone that was involved in their meeting a few weeks ago. We love you guys. Guys, that's part 1 for this Talanoa session. Stay tuned because we'll be in another place in Rotuma for part 2. So stay tuned, eh?
And now we go for a swim.
Go for a swim and
yes.
Transition time. Look, like this. Transition time. Transition. Oh wait, you have to be at the light. Yeah, obviously. Transition time. Oh yeah. Hello, Jed. This is part 2 of our Talanoa series with my brother, Christiaan De Beukelaer.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
And for this section, we are present here in the beautiful district of Oinafa here on the island of Rotuma. As you can see, look at the back there. That's the island of Haua. And beside here, there is the wharf, the Rotuma wharf. And behind me is the beautiful Une'ele or the beach of Oinafa. So, brother, again, for this section, we talked about your upbringing in the last part, and it's so interesting to see that the ocean has played a role in your part, in your upbringing. You went through, shout out to University of Amsterdam, all the people out there, and you're getting into the ocean and climate space. Now, this is an interesting part because I want to talk about this today, right here. Christiaan, can you share a little bit about what this book is and why our readers must get a copy of this?
Well, I'm not sure about the last bit. That's for everyone to decide themselves.
You should.
But so basically, the book grew out of a voyage I was on the ship the Aventure, which you see here. It's the sailing ship here on the top. It's not the big container ship. But I joined the Aventure at the end of February 2020. And the idea was to spend, a couple of weeks, probably about 3 weeks on board to sail from Tenerife in Spain, in the Canary Islands, across the Atlantic Ocean to Guadeloupe, which is basically, a territory of France. And I joined the ship to kind of better understand how these sailing cargo ships operated, but also what it would be like as a researcher to spend time on board and what I could learn from an experience like that.
Yeah.
You might remember what happened in 2020. While we were halfway the Atlantic, the captain received a message from the ship owner saying that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, all borders had closed, and it was not clear at all when or where we might be able to get off the ship eventually. So the 3 weeks I had planned turned out to be 5 months until finally we were able to disembark in Hamburg. And the book is a mix of that travel story of the time we spent at sea with the research I'd been doing into the shipping industry and how it can be cleaned up and how it can play a meaningful role in tackling climate change.
Okay. Sneak peek. What were some of the highlights on board the Aventure? At least tell me your 2 highlights, and the people will read the rest in here. But what were 2 of your highlights on being on that ship?
I mean, one highlight was definitely that we had an awful lot of fun and we cracked heaps of jokes. And one of the jokes we kept on making was that we were effectively, bobbing around in an infinity pool, and we needed to create our own infinity pool on board. Yeah. So at some point, after many, many jokes around this, someone came to wake me up when I was having a little nap. Yeah. And they said, put in your swimming trunks, which, the same that I just did a swim with around here. Yeah. And they said, put in your swimmers because the infinity pool is ready. And I'm like, what? Now, what happened was that the bosun had used some cargo nets and rigged them behind the vessel, kind of off the taffrail, and he had created an infinity pool that was the sea itself. Yeah. So the ocean itself was our infinity pool.
Yes.
And we could go down in the pilot ladder and swim by basically just hanging in the cargo net like a bunch of stray fish that were caught by our sailing ship. That was just absolutely beautiful. And I think, one of the other things was just, the sheer speed and intensity with which you get to know people, and how that just transforms the experience of being at sea. Just it's like a pressure cooker in which you kind of mix together very quickly into a beautiful stew.
Last part for this was, what did your experience of the adventure teach you about shipping, maritime shipping and wind?
Well, first of all, obviously that wind propulsion is a real thing and it works. And of course, that scale and type of vessel, is not particularly well suited to replace everything that we're currently shipping. Yeah. But that's also the flip side, is you start wondering how much effort and energy goes into moving things around, and you start really wondering how much of the stuff that gets shipped really needs to be transported over such big distances. So it makes you pause and think, how much of this stuff do we really need? Considering that we were shipping, cocoa beans and coffee, obviously we needed all of it. Yeah. But, with some of the things that, get shipped, you wonder, is that really a good use of our time and space on board ships?
Guys, this is the book Trade Winds. Make sure you get yourself a copy, learn about part of his story in this book, coming to you here from Oinafa. Stay tuned. Part 3 coming up, where we talk more about the PBSP and our work at the International Maritime Organization. Brother, you ready for the next part?
Absolutely.
I hope you are, because Just an Equitable Transition, the podcast Talanoa JJ is coming right up. In the meantime, Auntie! Hello! Yeah, hello! Say hello! Kalambo! Stay tuned, guys. See you soon. Oh, well, hello there. Welcome to a Just an Equitable Transition, the podcast Talanoa series with your host JJ. I'm here with brother Christiaan De Beukelaer. And as you can see in the previous sessions, we were getting a bit of the sun, the vitamin D, but now I'm wearing a hat. You can see me with some glasses. My brother is slowly getting a tan. So we are coming to you live here in Choro here in Rotuma in the district of Natal. We are here in Choro coming to you for this Jet podcast episode. Now in this section of the episode, brother, can you explain or can you share with our Jet Nation your role with MCST and the work coming into the IMO? What is that like, and what is your experience has been like in the IMO? But let's start first with your role at MCST, the Micronesian Center for Sustainable Transport. Shout out to MCST, guys.
I guess my role with MCST is always, it's an interesting one because I'm basically a researcher at the University of Melbourne. Yeah. And I am working on a multi-year research project into decarbonizing the shipping industry, the potential of wind propulsion for that, and also how we can make sure that that transition is just and equitable. And as a part of that, it's a real pleasure to be able to work quite closely with MCST and support in a variety of ways the work that the MCST team are doing, both in London and beyond. So it's kind of I'm like an external research partner. I'm not employed by MCST, I'm not paid by MCST, but I'm in some ways part of the team, I guess.
And your role with MCST has been really instrumental in helping our Oceania delegations at the IMO, fight in these GHG negotiations and supporting them technically, the processes, on a just and equitable transition through the technical details, making sure that they're up to date and they're following, they're following. And so, for you, when you entered the IMO, what was your experience like, and what are your thoughts ever since?
Well, it's an interesting space because most people who are at the IMO in some capacity are either a naval engineer or a lawyer, and I'm neither. And that and much like you, we kind of stand out in a variety of ways in that environment. But I think if you hear the stories from 10-15 years ago, things have come a long way. You can show up without a blazer, you can show up without a tie, you can show up as yourself in many ways. And I think that's something quite important. I think, there's also an awful lot of women very active in a space that has for a long time been very much dominated by men. And I think it's also, useful to say that the two co-directors of MCST are women.
Shout out to you guys,
yes.
Aileen, Maria.
But they're not the only ones. There's a whole range of, really interesting women, but also,
the whole family, the whole team.
There's fascinating people at the IMO doing really interesting work, and it's just great to be a part of that and try to contribute in the way that I can.
And how do you feel, being part of, supporting the Pacific delegations? What's that been like for you?
I mean, as someone who looks at the current climate science and sees the perspectives and positions that the Pacific are taking, as an academic, it's pretty much the only thing you can really do, because you have a lot of other countries, trying to pretend that they're actually, really committed to tackling climate change, but then when it comes down to their actual, hard positions, aren't really doing that. Whereas in the Pacific, you have a group of countries that are steadfast and say, look, this is what the climate science demands. This is what our people ask from us. Our people as in the citizens of these countries. And it's a real pleasure to be able to work with countries and people who take that scientific basis very seriously as a starting point for negotiations, but also keep on reminding everyone else that that's effectively what we need to work towards. So as an academic, it's a very easy and a natural fit, because you look at the scientific basis and those political positions map onto each other very neatly. So it feels like a good home as an academic.
Nice. We talk about the Pacific delegations at the IMO, and there is this coalition called the Six Pack. And can share with our Jet Nation, what's the Six Pack and how it became Six Pack Plus?
Right, that's an interesting story, because you initially had 6 countries coming together: Marshall Islands, Solomon Islands, Fiji, Tonga, Kiribati, and Tuvalu were the original six-pack.
Not this six-pack here.
No. It's the 6 Pacific rather than our very muscled underbelly. But basically, those countries came together and played a very strong role in voicing a unified position. And then, as things went on, several other countries have joined that coalition. Vanuatu joined. You had Samoa join, Nauru. You had Palau join, and also you had a country that is not at all in the Pacific, but the Seychelles became very much a part of that kind of enlargement.
Shout out to you, Captain Adam. You were in one of my episodes.
And in parallel to that six-pack becoming six-pack plus, you had a group, or you had other countries really kind of coming together and coordinating their positions across Africa and across the Caribbean. And it was really fascinating to see how, those countries came together, and how there was a very strong and amicable kind of coordination between Pacific countries, Caribbean countries, and African countries. And that's something that's really strengthened throughout the time that I've been part of these negotiations.
Guys, stay tuned. The next part, we're going to be talking more about what we do in the international level and translating that into the regional level, especially on the Pacific Blue Shipping Partnership and some of the articles that we've been writing on. We'll give you an update about that.
Yes.
But guys, here, coming to you from Choro, here in Nuatau and the island of Rotuma, stay tuned. Jet now, jet tomorrow, and jet for the future. Stay tuned, guys. So, Christian, we're working in the Pacific Blue Shipping Partnership. Can you explain to our viewers what is the Pacific Blue Shipping Partnership, translating from our work at the IMO, and why is it so critical for the region?
I think it's something that's, as an academic, it's always both difficult and easy to explain things, but the PBSP is kind of the other side of the coin. Because it's one thing to take, diplomats and lawyers to climate negotiations and ask for really ambitious targets and ensure that there's regulations in place that will force countries and companies to actually deliver on them. But then the tricky part becomes going back to your citizens, in this case, for Pacific negotiators and their ministers, to come back here to the Pacific and create solutions that are workable, that are feasible, and that people here can afford. And it's especially the last point where things often get really tricky, because most of the cargo ships that operate in the Pacific are really old ships that have been used up by quote unquote rich countries. So old ferries, old cargo ships, vessels that would normally have ended up being sold for scrap, end up still prolonging their life here in the Pacific. And while that might be good, to make most of the resources that we have and not scrap the ships too early, it means that making the shift from the existing fleet of old and polluting vessels to new, highly energy efficient and very low emission ships is an extremely costly thing to do, because you go from the cheapest ships on the market to ships for which you will really have to pay a premium, because those new ships tend to be still, more expensive than conventional ships. So we're looking at what is needed to fill the gap between the cheapest third, fourth, fifth hand ships and new primary wind vessels that are fit for purpose here in the Pacific.
Awesome. Now, we also did a collaborative work on this, an article that we wrote together called Sailing Through Time. Can you explain to our Jet Nation more about what this article meant and how can people access it, and generally what it's about?
Yeah, so it's an article that's part of that's been published in Global Policy. In a special kind of issue on tracing the futures, which was edited by Nikita Chiu from University of Durham University.
Shout out.
And it's basically what we've tried to do is kind of connect that whole idea of the PBSP to the long history of seafaring in the Pacific. Because as you might know, Pacific seafarers have been really at the forefront of developing extremely performant outrigger canoes, both really small within lagoons and around small islands, but also really big ones that are used to connect really far away islands. And the idea was to kind of bring together a group of people who are involved in the PBSB as advisors, civil servants, researchers, and so on, and people who have worked on that much more traditional wayfinding, seafaring tradition here in the Pacific. So we had people like Larry Reigatal from FSM and Alison Keelan from the Marshall Islands, who have worked with master students at the University of Hawaii on their thesis. And sorry. So we have these master students who, you know, did some really critical work in unearthing or, you know, reconnecting some of those kind of traditional insights from wayfinding and that canoe tradition. And we've woven that together with the challenges that we face in scaling up this Pacific Blue Shipping Partnership. So it's been a really collaborative work of more than 20 co-authors that, you know, came together and created something that none of us would have been able to create on our own. And it's really lovely to see such a collaborative work really come together by everyone, you know, providing, you know, their bits of knowledge and then us together, you know, weaving that into one piece.
Where can we access that article?
If you just search for Sailing Through Time, and you can, you know, click the link here, and then you go straight to the Global Policy website. It's fully open access, so you can share with anyone who's interested, and just, yeah, hopefully it'll be an inspiring read.
Awesome. Well, guys, check it out. Check the link. We are here live at Motusa at the East Lepi, the sandbanks here on the island of Rotuma. Check out for our next one where we do more intimate reflections. We're going to be rounding up our Jet episode today, back where we started from. So stay tuned, guys. Coming to you live from East Lepi. Jet now, Jet tomorrow, and Jet for the future. Hold on. Look! Great, eh? Hey. How do you turn this thing? Wait, right now. Hello, fellow Jetters. This is a Just an Equitable Transition podcast, the Talanoa series. Here with your host, JJ. I hope everyone's doing fine. It's been an immense, eventful day. I hope you guys have been keeping track with us. But here, the final section for this episode. I'm here with brother Christiaan De Beukelaer. How are you?
I'm good.
You know, what a day it's been.
It's been beautiful.
Super grateful that we get to share this space. And this final section, we are now here in beautiful Malha'a district in Rotuma, coming to you. Right there is the Hofkamea, my fellow Rotumans, if you know the Hofkamea. Right there. So guys, final section, you know, we start off with a thing I like to call the recover corner. So recovering the corner. Make sure you've had cover. You've had cover, I'd say, all over the world by now. You know, you're in Rotuma, you're spending time with the Rotumans here, my family, my koinanga. What do you think about the cover here?
Well, I mean, the fresh one does taste a little bit different. But, you know, all in all, it's not so much, you know, the drink itself is one thing, but it's, you know, just sitting down and sharing it, that's, you know, that's always the same, and that's no different here.
Oh, cool. And what's been your favorite chaser to have with kava?
Ooh, fresh coconut.
Ooh, the freshest coconut there can be. It's a really good chaser because it's really sweet, natural. It has a lot of electrolytes. We've been drinking new almost every day. We've been drinking new, so it's been keeping us hydrated the whole time we've been here. Yeah. Now, moving on, we're going to move to this or that. So you have Either one word answer or one sentence answer, but it has to be on the spot.
Okay.
Yeah? Ready? For our Jet viewers here in Malha, what's your favorite book?
Ooh. Oh, I can't possibly choose.
Top 2 books for our audience.
Not
Why?
even top 2.
Really? There's so
My
many.
favorite book is The Library.
Guys, the favorite book is The Library. See? All the books, all the good books are in there. Okay, library. Favorite food?
Ooh.
Oh, favorite food you've had in Rotuma?
My favorite food here, I think it might have been the seaweed with coconut and lemon. So
That's
yeah,
lumi.
beautiful.
The red one, especially.
Yes.
The seaweed with a bit of coconut, lemon, a bit of salt. Oh, it's been
Very
the best.
nice.
Yeah, okay. Tea or coffee?
Mostly tea, really.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the best advice that you've ever received?
Ooh. Don't hold on to anything. It always changes.
Hey, don't hold on to anything because it always changes. Nice. Some of our Jet people out there can get that, use that advice. And so, I've been going around in all my episodes asking people. This podcast is called a Just and Equitable Transition Podcast. What does a just and equitable transition mean for you?
It's one where we're not only looking at the transition itself to
Yes.
make sure that things don't get worse, because that's how the term is often used at the IMO. It's just like we have to make sure that in this transition things don't even get worse than they already are.
Okay.
But for me, Jet really means that we're actively building towards something that is a lot better, because we can do that, and I think we have to do that in order to, not just tackle climate change, but also ensure that we're building, futures that actually matter.
Yeah, and thank you for that. That's a powerful statement that you just said, and I hope our listeners and our viewers can take that into consideration. We're coming towards the end of this episode. What an episode it's been! Yeah. Can you share? It's your first time on the island of Rotuma, especially where I come from. He's home. He's home, Koinangi. He's home. Could you share some reflections with the people on what your experience in Rotuma has been?
I mean, obviously, when you arrive in Rotuma for the first time, you have to go through a mamasa or a welcome ceremony. And I deliberately didn't look into it too much to just kind of go with the flow and see what it would be like. And it was beautiful to have, the family come together and welcome me into their home, and it was just not just the single house that we were staying in, but it's basically the street. And
by the way, guys, Christian thinks the whole of Rotuma is one village. There's no district.
It feels like that, and it also feels like everyone is just one big family, because we haven't come across a single person where John or anyone else in his family didn't, say, oh, and this is that person, and they're my, great after left-wing auntie. There's always some sort of a family connection, and it makes it quite beautiful.
Yeah.
But the other thing is obviously that we've been staying at the house of Aunt Akanisi.
Oh, shout out to Aunt Akanisi. Aunt Akanisi, we love you.
She's been the most wonderful host, and she's been, looking after us really, really well. And I think this stay would have been quite disastrous if it wasn't for her. So I'm really, really grateful that she let her stay in her house and welcomed us, with open arms.
And so, some advice for, some people coming up the ranks or coming into these different spaces in academia, in oceans, in climate. What would be your advice for them coming into the space?
I'd say if you're looking for advice, try to figure out where you can make a difference. Try to, find out a bit like the sea kind of, coming up to the coast. Like, what are the spots that you can, you can fill?
Yeah.
But also, don't be afraid to have a vision and pursue that, and find people to work towards such a vision with, because it's easy to kind of go with the flow, but it's somehow finding that balance between vision and stubbornly working towards it, and finding how and where you can actually be useful.
Oh, thank you, brother.
My pleasure.
Now, because you've been to our island home, you've shared space with us and my family, I think it's rightful at this time for me to give an appreciation to you, brother, especially for coming and being so humble and just enjoying the space with my family, my koinanga. And it's always, if at any moment you may have felt uncomfortable, I just wanted to say on behalf of our family and koinanga, please forgive us. But again, we've really enjoyed your company with us. Thank you for coming home. Thank you for sharing space, walking around, doing this jet podcast with me, and very thankful. Thank you. And I think this trip alone, this episode has really built us closer as brothers, and I'm very thankful to God. I'm thankful to you. I'm thankful to your family again. So from us and the island and the family, thank you for coming over, bro.
It's been a real pleasure, and I couldn't have imagined a better way of visiting this place. So thank you so much.
See, bro, that's how you do it. Guys, this is a Just an Equitable Transition podcast, the Talanoa series, here with your host, JJ, the Traveling Diplomat. Stay tuned. So much more exciting people that I'll be experiencing on my journey, and through the ocean spaces, to the climate spaces, even here in Rotuma. So guys, stay tuned. So much more amazing stuff to come over. Thank you all for the support. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for engaging in this podcast series. Wouldn't have been possible without your support. So thank you. From here in the Hofkamea in Malha'a, we're signing out for today. Ifuli'u, Oinafa, Choro, Islepi, back here in Solmena in Malha'a. You guys have a blessed day. Catch you guys later in the next podcast when we say jet now,
Jet tomorrow,
and jet for the future. Cheers!